A major heat wave continues to bring record high and low temperatures to the United States, and we're looking at significant severe weather events with damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes with flooding rainfall as well. That will move across the United States over the next 1 to 2 weeks. We're going to give you everything that you need to know information-wise in this video. So if you are a fan of straightforward, reliable, and accurate weather information, this is the channel to subscribe to. So subscribe to my channel. We do daily weather forecast updates here. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share it with a friend, family member on social media. It helps to get the word out, helps to get all this vital information to more and more people. I definitely appreciate it. Let's look at the severe weather risk here in just a moment, but let's touch on our temperatures because this afternoon, it was a steamy afternoon across Texas, Oklahoma, much of the lower Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley to the Great Lakes. We were in the 90s, triple digits down here across a large chunk of the Lone Star State, the Sooner State, the Razorback State, and down here even into Louisiana. So a lot of 90s, lots of triple digits out there, heat index values well over 100 degrees, but the relief is not too far away. See to the north here into the upper Midwest, we have the upper 70s, low 80s as a cold front, a boundary is sitting from near Milwaukee and Chicago down toward Kansas City and Dodge City, Kansas. On the opposite side of that boundary, that's where the temperatures are much cooler and the humidity is a little bit further scoured out. Now we are seeing right on that boundary severe weather this afternoon, but also into this evening. We have a slight risk of severe weather in yellow, including the Chicago metropolitan area, Fort Wayne, Indiana, up here into Grand Rapids, Michigan. In the yellow, scattered severe thunderstorms are possible. In the dark green, from Michigan all the way down here into Amarillo, Texas, the Texas Panhandle, up through the high plains, the Colorado area there, into eastern Wyoming, into the Panhandle of Nebraska, western South Dakota. That's isolated severe thunderstorms in the dark green. Now, the primary threat will be for 60-mile-per-hour winds. We already have severe warnings earlier on this afternoon across Chicago. That is going to be the threat as we move forward through the evening hours. Will be 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. The hail threat's going to be much lower because it's very warm at the surface, and we have a little narrow area of warm air aloft that's preventing the hail from growing much, but we could have some quarter-size hailstones there in northeast Michigan, also back here across the high plains. Thankfully, the tornado threat is unlikely today. It's less than 2%, but even so, we still have to keep an eye on the threat for a tornado, although the threat is very, very low. As we go into Friday tomorrow on July 25th, they have added a slight risk of severe weather, including parts of the I-95 corridor into the northeast. In the yellow, that's where scattered severe thunderstorms are possible from southern Massachusetts through Rhode Island, Connecticut, down here into New York, including Long Island, and into New Jersey. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Big cities here, Providence, Hartford, New York City, and Trenton. So millions of people are impacted there for tomorrow. And you can see in dark green from coastal Maine, like the Portland area, Concord, New Hampshire, all the way back down to Washington, D.C. and Dover, Delaware. That's where we could be seeing isolated severe thunderstorms there in dark green. Also watching an area in eastern portions of Kansas and up towards North Dakota. Now, again, tomorrow, the main threat will be damaging winds of 60 to 70 miles per hour from Boston to Hartford and Providence down to New York City, Trenton, and even into the Philly area, Philadelphia, so we'll be keeping an eye on that. And then the hail threat is most prominent up there into North Dakota with some cool air aloft up there. And tomorrow, there's a little bit more of a chance of tornadoes across eastern North Dakota, northwestern Minnesota, down here into eastern Kansas, where a 2% chance of tornadoes resides in the green within a 25-mile radius of any given point in or around this area. Now, with that said, let's go with region by region. Central U.S. first, eastern U.S. second, and western U.S. third, and talk about the next 48 hours of what the simulated radar could look like. Here this evening, we are seeing scattered thunderstorms and severe ones developing, including some warnings that were issued a couple of hours ago in the Chicagoland area for 60-mile-per-hour winds and some quarter-size hail. That theme will continue through the evening hours as we continue to have a conveyor belt of thunderstorm activity moving from the Texas Panhandle and Oklahoma Panhandle up there through Kansas, northern Missouri, and western Illinois. And as they move over the same areas, the ground will eventually become saturated elevating that flooding risk as we go into overnight and into Friday morning. So we're watching out in and around the Kansas City area for that. Starting off Friday morning, 8 a.m., we're watching a couple thunderstorms there, St. Joseph, Missouri, the Kansas City, Missouri area. And then as we go through the day, those will weaken, but then that will reinforce the boundary just a little bit further south. Now we're talking Quincy, Illinois. We're talking St. Louis, Springfield, Missouri, and into areas there into central Missouri, for example, as we go into tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. So when it's all said and done, through Saturday morning at 7 a.m. on July 26th, we could be talking a good swath of 2 to 4 inches of rain from central Illinois, the I-80, and more so the I-74 corridor, especially for the Peoria area, Pekin, and down towards Springfield and north of St. Louis, and then extending back into the Kansas City metropolitan area, and then some more sporadic heavy downpours for Kansas and back into western Oklahoma. Let's talk about the eastern U.S. here this evening. Got some thunderstorms up here even into Canada. Our friends in Toronto seeing some thunderstorms here this evening. A few of those could be severe as well. And then as we go through the evening hours, again, a lot of this is going to wash out before moving across from Canada into the United States. I suppose there could be a shower in northern Maine, but altogether, I don't see any severe weather being significant tonight for much of the eastern U.S. Now, that said, tomorrow is a different story. We're watching a broken line of some severe weather already at midday, noon, 1 o'clock, moving through Boston, Hartford, Providence, down to New York City, including much of Long Island, and then into Trenton, portions of New Jersey there. We're going to keep an eye on that 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts these storms could pose, also some quarter-size hail, and also the frequent lightning threat, in addition to heavy rainfall. That will move off the coast as we go into Friday evening, and then we'll see some more storms evolving back here into the western and central Ohio Valley as we go into early on Saturday. Notice here, much of the Ohio Valley will be dry, especially the further south you go into Kentucky and West Virginia. However, areas in northern Indiana, into northern and central Ohio, southern lower Michigan could see around an inch or two of rain and more sporadic downpours across the northeast. A lot of us, probably 50% of us, will remain dry through Saturday morning. That means not everybody will see a storm. Now, here in the western U.S., we are seeing some storms, and this is with our monsoonal flow across portions of New Mexico, Colorado, and southeastern Wyoming. That will continue as we go into the overnight, but as we lose the daytime heating and the instability, we lose the thunderstorm coverage and their intensity as well, and then we'll redo that again, kind of rinse and repeat as we go into Friday afternoon and evening back here across the west. We could introduce some showers, perhaps a thunderstorm in northern California, northwest Nevada, up here into Idaho and western Montana as we go into Friday evening as well. Now, with that said, a lot of us in the west, probably 90% of us, will remain dry. Northern California, more so really northeastern California, would see around a half an inch of rain if that did come to fruition. Otherwise, it's the monsoonal moisture from New Mexico, Colorado, up there into southeastern Wyoming that could cash in with some of the rainfall. Now, going into Saturday, July 26th, to start the opening half of the weekend, we do have more severe weather on in the forecast here. Marginal risk, which is an isolated threat for severe weather, including, again, the Chicagoland area, Rockford, Illinois, Peoria, Fort Wayne, Gary and South Bend, Indiana, Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, and then back here into Billings, Helena, Montana, and into the central Dakotas, mainly for damaging winds and hail. Tornado threat Saturday should be low. Let's talk about this ridge of high pressure here. This afternoon is anchored across the southeastern U.S., and it will start to flatten out as we go into tomorrow on Friday, but it will pump back up northward and amplify as we go into later on this weekend, which means a return of more high heat and humidity across the plains, Midwest, and southern Great Lakes as we round out the weekend. And here we go tomorrow morning. Here's where our temperatures will be as we start your Friday, heading off to work, running any errands out there. Going to be a warm one from the northeast down here into the deep south. We're going to be warming up here very quickly as we're already in the mid 70s, and by Friday afternoon, here we go back into the triple digits, the 90s all the way up here to the Tennessee Ohio River Valley. There is a boundary though to the north of it, again, tomorrow, we're going to be seeing the 80s and the upper 70s with some lower humidity. But as we go into the weekend, the 90s will start building back up across the Dakotas, western Nebraska, especially the Nebraska Panhandle by Saturday. And then by Sunday, triple-digit heat will find itself in Nebraska as well. Record highs from the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. It could be a steamy Sunday for areas near Columbia, Myrtle Beach, down to Savannah, Georgia, and Jacksonville, as we could be in the low 100s there on Sunday. Now, going into next week, this is Monday, July 28th through Friday, August 1st, that ridge is going to flex its muscles further to the west and expand in intensity, and that means the hottest temperatures are still going to reside across the Carolinas, the southeast, but it will expand further west across the Red River Valley. Notice the blue up here, which is leaning below normal with our temperatures next week. That means frequent cold fronts will be moving through the upper Midwest, and that will bring some thunderstorm chances to the northern central plains, but also the Midwest as we go into next week between Monday, July 28th and Friday, August 1st. We'll be keeping a very close eye on severe weather chances there, especially starting off right out the gate there on Sunday, July 27th. A lot of storm energy. You can see the charcoal color here across the north central plains into the Midwest, and that means a thunderstorm complex that you typically see this time of year will start to develop across the eastern Dakotas, Minnesota. It'll drop southeast into Iowa and probably weaken before it reaches Missouri or Illinois, but it could bring a threat for damaging winds primarily, but some hail and isolated tornadoes. And of course, with the high moisture content and the evapotranspiration of your corn crop, that could lead to some torrential downpours. And that pattern will continue into the second week of August as the center of that ridge is going to park itself right over the southern United States there in the southern plains. Our temperature anomalies could be leaning 15, 20 degrees above normal there again across the Red River Valley. So get used to the heat if you live in Dallas, Fort Worth, Little Rock, Oklahoma City, Wichita, Tulsa, and even up into Kansas City as well. Very hot for the Sacramento Valley out west, but notice that ring of fire pattern. You can kind of see it here clockwise around that heat with our temperature map. You can definitely see it with the precipitation anomaly map, as you can see a lot of green up over the top of that ridge, and that means we're going to have northwest flow from the Midwest and the Ohio and Tennessee River valleys, and that could promote more heavy rain events and more severe weather events even going into the second week of August. Let's stop here and talk about the tropics, okay? Because let's look at our water temperatures here across the MDR. The main development region is a little bit cooler than what you would typically see in late July, but over here in contrast in the Gulf, especially the northern and northwest Gulf, is very warm. In fact, we are well above pace of where we should be with our ocean temperatures here in the northern Gulf, especially the shelf waters near New Orleans and Lake Pontchartrain. Very, very warm for this time of year, and that is promoting a system that is trying to develop here. Now, the National Hurricane Center, Miami, Florida, is still hanging on to a 10% chance of this system developing. It is running out of time, my friends. The Gulf is only so big, and it eventually will be running into a source of land, and that will end its threat for becoming a tropical cyclone. So if we look at this, right now there's plenty of moisture in the northern Gulf. We already saw how warm those ocean temperatures are there. This is primarily going to be a rain system for the Gulf Coast. Houston, Lake Charles, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Gulfport, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, Panama City, Florida, those areas could be affected by that as we start the weekend, and that could just lead to some flooding rains. And the rainfall amounts, they don't look super impressive for a tropical system potentially here, but they could pack a punch. There could be areas that have flooded roadways down here near New Orleans. We could be seeing that in Houston as well. It's something to keep an eye on, okay? 2 to 5 inches of rain can still cause flash flooding if it is dumped in the same area in a short amount of time. So be keeping an eye on that. Also, for the Atlantic hurricane season in general, what is suppressing it is the Saharan dust coming off of Africa. That is dry air, and that is suppressing a lot of the systems that you typically see in late July trying to start up here in the main development region. Of course, in between those waves of dry air and dust, there could be systems that could sneak in there and try to develop, but right now, a bigger plume of dust looks to come off of the Saharan desert over there in Africa by the time we close out the month and go into early August, and that could push toward the Lesser Antilles, again, suppressing the hurricane season. Now, looking here in contrast across the East Pacific, there is a slightly higher chance of development here over the next 7 days. 40% chance of development here in the East Pacific, just south and east of Hawaii by a bit there. And we're going to keep an eye on this because it looks like a wave train of systems in the East Pacific. It's going to be waking up again as we go into late July and early August, and a formidable system could develop in that first week of August, taking a run towards Hawaii. So what does that mean for Hawaii here in the short term? Well, we're not seeing much happening through the Saturday, Sunday timeframe. So the weekend, you're fine. Yeah, you get some showers, you get some thunderstorms indirectly from that system. But as we go into the middle of next week, then we're going to keep an eye on the Big Island there of Hawaii. And that is where the tropical wave could open up, bring some heavier rains by the time we get to Wednesday, July 30th and Thursday, July 31st, before that skirts by very quickly to the south and west of Hawaii. So we'll be keeping an eye on that here in the long range forecast. And if you did enjoy the forecast, folks, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Straightforward, accurate, reliable weather coverage daily here on this channel across southern Canada, the United States, and the tropics. We got you covered here at Weather on the Go. So subscribe to the channel, like the video, give it a thumbs up, share with a friend, family member, and on social media. And also, if you have any comments, questions, and concerns, jot that down in the comment section down below this video. We are here all day, all night, 24/7 to answer any and all questions, comments, and concerns that you may have. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for the support, and I hope everyone has a wonderful and safe rest of their Thursday out there.